So Janet just got back from New York. I say just because it was yesterday, yes, last night, and we're still here, which is amazing. So Janet, you get started.
Yeah, yeah. So, hi, everybody. Brenda and I were in Manhattan last week, Thursday through Sunday, teaching at the American Sewing Guild Conference. And if you're not familiar with the American Sewing Guild, you may want to take a look. It's asg.org, and everything about their organization, their guild, their neighbor, they have different groups in different cities all over the country, and they have annual conferences. And they also do some things on the internet. They're always adding some new and fun things, but it's all about sewing. So, anyways, we were there. We had, just some wonderful students, and we had a great time. So, the first day we did the 5 easy teas, and we did a little fitting, just a little because we can't make a t-shirt and do all the fitting one day. But we did some minor fitting, and everyone looked great in their t-shirts, and they did a fabulous job. So, that was a lot of fun. We taught bound buttonholes. We taught no pins, no basting. Uh, we did a lecture on pant drafting, and it was just a great time. We saw some of our old sewing teacher friends and some of our old friends that are enthusiasts, members of the guild. So that was fun. And then every night, Brenda and I found a different type of restaurant to go to for a little bite to eat and back to bed early. So that was fun too. We ate at a ramen restaurant, Greek, Thai, and then a nice little Italian place as well. So we went to the Italian place twice.
Go on.
Oh, okay. So in our last Tuesdays at 2, we talked about proportions and how even though we might have the same three measurements, bust, waist, hip, it doesn't mean that we can still wear the same exact pattern because our proportions are different, meaning that the bust point might be higher or lower. The waist, the distance between the bust and the waist may be significantly different. And almost always between the waist and the widest part of the hip, because we all have a different configuration to where that gets larger. So that all makes a big difference. Anyway, so I want to talk about dress forms this week and how they relate to fitting and proportions and where things could be the very best and where you might need to make a few little changes in how to do that. So the first dress form that I want to talk about, I don't have an example of because I don't own one, and I'll tell you why. So it is, and not necessarily this specific brand, because I found several brands online and they all were the exact same price, although they were made just slightly different. They're $200 and they are very problematic, in my opinion. And the problem is these dials. So they're called adjustable dress forms, and they have dials on them that will expand and contract to a certain point. The problem is that doesn't really do it in the right proportions, as well as those dials break down really fast. They're plastic dials with plastic. Pretty soon they freeze up or they break off.
Or I've had it before where like you go to turn it and it just turns and turns and turns and turns and
And
turns and nothing's moving.
yeah, so they're although they're $200, their mechanisms don't hold up well. That's what I have to say about that. Now, dress forms in general, and some of these are not pinnable too. But I think this one looks like it is, but I will promise you I did not do my research to find out, but it does look like it might be pinnable. So let's talk about pinnable. Why does it need to be pinnable and all the different degrees of pinnable? So the reason we would want a dress form to be pinnable is so that we can hold things in place while we're adjusting, maybe to do fitting and
I
things.
thought you doubled it as a voodoo doll.
Oh yeah, and you could, and I will show you one that was. So anyway, um, and if you're going to do any draping,
So to pin the I know, to pin things in place.
pin things in place or hold them where you want them. Now, some dress forms will be pinnable at about 1/4 of an inch. So you can't just stick the pin in. You've got to be very careful. And there's like a very hard surface in there. So I always imagine I'm going to be dulling every pin I use. So
You
you,
to put them on an
you
angle
got to
and
put them on an angle and be very careful. So I do that in that type of a dress form. And I also keep those pins with that dress form. So I put them in the back of the neck. So it is kind of a voodoo doll. So I put them in the back of the neck and hold them there. They don't go back into my pin cushion. And then there are dress forms that are very pinnable. And some of those are better than others as well. So pinnable is one thing that we're looking for in a dress form if we want to use it for fitting, which is probably what you want to use it for because you're a sewing enthusiast and you just want to get things to fit. Where dress forms were originally designed for designers. So again, when we talked about those proportions last time, we talked about the fact that patterns are developed for a woman who's 5'6" and has a specific hourglass figure, meaning that the distance, the measurement difference between the bust and the waist is approximately 10 inches, and the exact same to the hip. So it's a very hourglass figure. And so the dress forms were built like that because that's how they design. And that's basically how, and the type of models that a designer is looking for to walk on their runway. They want people who are extremely long, but they want even proportions. And some of us just aren't even proportioned.
most.
Yeah, okay.
Most of us.
Yes, yes. And that's fair too, because most of us are not. So that is how dress forms were developed. So let's um, talk about the different types of dress forms before I go over to my demo. So you can get a dress form that's just the torso. You can get a dress form that has the top half of the leg so that you have that crotch area and a little bit of leg. You can get a dress form that has legs, and generally the legs are detachable. And you can also get dress forms with attachable arms. So some of them will be attachable by a tie, and it's just one arm. And actually, you can see this doesn't really look like anybody's real arm. There's no elbow, and the shape is kind of basic, but it's just to help you see if you're putting a sleeve on, but you're really not fitting on these arms or legs because they are very generic. Here's one that actually clamps on. So it clamps right onto the shoulder. It stays there really nice. It's stiff as a board. And again, it's not really the same shape as anybody's arm exactly, but it's a good for general purposes, as they
Yeah,
used to
like to
say.
see where your sleeve is going to hang,
Yeah,
like how
yeah.
long it
hmm
is, stuff like that.
Yeah, stuff like that. So exactly. So there's all those different options in dress forms, and of course the prices range drastically. And so each of us has to decide what dress form is going to work for us. We've got a budget. We've got a certain set of things that we want to do with it. So let's talk about the first dress form I ever had is right here behind Jessica. I can just slide it right up here, right,
The
Jess?
first dress run you ever had ever?
hmm I did not have one as a young person. I never sewed with a dress form. I
You
don't think.
never had a twisty one.
Nope. No, I never had a dress form. I had a body. And of course, when I was 18 to probably 30, maybe even 35, because you were born at 30, my first child, my body was easy to fit. I never even considered needing a dress form. I didn't have to do hardly anything different to a pattern to have it fit other than remembering that my proportions were short. So I wouldn't necessarily hem it at the hem. I would do the short and lengthen line to keep the proportions. So, anyways, this is an inexpensive dress form, and it has a very stretchy little cover on it, and it does have some princess seams and a center front seam. Really important to have a center front seam, but this is very loose on here, and so that could get skewed easily. And a lot of times you want to use the center front because you, especially when you're drafting, you're only drafting half a piece. So you've got to know where that center front. Also, it helps you keep things straight. But anyways, so it's kind of okay, but it can be ambiguous. It's very stretchy. Um, and it has the princess seams, but you can see this one is stretched over here. I'd have to get it back and hopefully keep it on the apex. I almost think it would need a new form. It is styrofoam because when my oldest grandson found it, he also found my size 12 plastic knitting needles. And he decided to play sword fighter or something. And there's quite a few holes in my form right about the height that he could reach. So he had really had a great time with this dress form, and it still held up. But for design purposes and for keeping everything online, maybe not the best, but it'll do. And you can pin into it very easily. Now, the traditional form that a designer will use has the princess seams, and this is molded right on here. This is not going to move. So you know those princess seams are accurate. You know that center front is accurate. And they even do a little extra top stitching or whip stitching, whatever it is, but it creates a three-dimensional edge on the side seam. Well, you know, if you're doing any of the fitting classes, I always talk about how important it is that your seams stay straight to your side. So that's a perfect place to check that. And of course, in the back, those princess seams are here. And that's really helpful. Now, this is one that you can't pin very far. So you definitely have to go at an angle. You cannot just stick the pin in. So these are a nice dress form. And, but again, dress forms like this were created for designing on. Because when a pattern designer or a garment designer that designs a whole line of garments, they're going to design one size and it's going to be in again in those hourglass proportions. And the average height of a woman in the United States is probably right around 5'6", when you think most people you know range between 4'11" and 6 foot. And that's the range of women. So it's really 5'11" because they're six is really tall for a woman. So, anyways, the 5'6" hits that average point. So that's what the garment maker wants to design on. But is that going to work for you? Well, let me tell you, I don't think so. One of the reasons is when we talked about proportions. So when you are fitting and drafting for a person, you check those proportions. Now this one, I will tell you the shoulder seams are way too far forward. So that's probably been stretched by my grandson playing. But anyway, so we're going to say from the center of the shoulder to the bust is 9 1/4. What if you're 11? Can you drop the chest on this dress form? No. So can you design for your fit for yourself on this form? No. Let's see what this one is from the shoulder seam. This one's 9 1/2 to the apex. What did I say this one was?
9 1/4.
9 1/4. And as a pattern drafter, we've measured a lot of people, and this can range anywhere from, say, the average 8 to 11, 11 and a half. So there's a huge range difference. And as you age, the bust line can move a little bit lower. So you've got all these different changes that you cannot make on this dress form. The same thing happens with from this bust point to the waist. Wait to the bust point on this one to the waist is 6.5. The bust point on this one to the waist is 7.5, almost 7 3/4. Again, a different proportion. So how do you know it's going to be in your proportions? Same thing with the widest part of the hip. Whenever we measure for drafting or fitting from the waist to the widest part of the hip, we look at somebody sideways and we look for that widest part, and that's where her hip is. And so we come down, and that's like at 8. Now, this gal has almost no hip, if I remember. And a lot of dress forms are flat butted, and this one pretty much is. So it's going to be hard to tell, but it's going to be more like 9 1/4 on her. So again, the proportions are off. Now, when you buy dress forms, a lot of the companies have these padding systems. And you can pad up the shoulders. You could pad up I use this one particularly on a dress form because I have a rounded back. And it just seemed to work to be about the approximate amount of rounding that I needed. So that has worked for me, but these are really thigh pads, I think. Side back pad. This one's a thigh pad. So I had a whole bag of them that came. You can build up a bust on a dress form by putting your bra that fits you well on there and then stuffing it till it fits the bra. And then you have the right measurement around the front. But is it the same measurement you have in the back as the dress form? We're not all equal. Some of us have very narrow backs, some of us have very broad backs. So that has to be taken into consideration as well as the front. And when we pattern draft and fit, we know we have to measure the body in segments because it's not equal front and back. So padding can be helpful, but you also are still dealing with lack of control over the proportions. Now, if you go to buy one of these dress forms, I would check those proportions and make sure they were at least similar. And get the best fit you can get. There are people that will tell you you can pad them up with like batting instead of these little pads, and you can. But again, some of those instructions are to measure the hip, and if the hip measures 38 and you have a 48, you just wind the batting around till it measures 48. That's not right, because maybe you needed it all in the back and you put half of it in the front. Or maybe you need 2/3 in the back and 1/3 in the front. In any case, it just doesn't work that way. So you have to always remember to quarter the body, and remember uh, that the back of your body is not the same size as the front of your body. Okay, so now we think we found a solution in dress forms. And I know that I have cautioned you, and I think I even have a myth buster about not making your own dress form, where there's a couple of different ones. There's one where they tape your whole body with just your underwear underneath and let it dry and then stuff it, and that's your body. And that one is pretty accurate, except for the distance between your body and the outside of all this tape that they've put on there, and then putting another, what do you call it? Layer on top of it. So then there's new ones I've noticed, and they are ones where they sell you a pattern. and you pick out your size and you sew it up in muslin, and then you stuff it. And I think you sewed it in muslin. I don't know because I didn't go any further after I saw one. They are very not replica. They don't replicate the human body. So where the bust is, instead of a bust coming out and then going back in, it comes out into here and then it blends back into the rest of the body. So it isn't even a good shape of the
So
body.
it's more like making a shirt and stuffing it.
Sort of, but there is a protrusion at the top, but there's hardly any at the bottom. And
Well, that's how some people are.
well, it could be if you had
But not
a
everybody.
cup and you did a push-up bra, then you might be built like that, but the rest of us aren't. So anyway, so be careful of the flat-butted forms as well. So here's what we are very excited to show you. And this is the first body replica dress form that I feel comfortable endorsing. And this is ditto form. So this is ditto form, and they come to you and they scan your body three-dimensionally. Then this form is made in a machine to a certain extent, and then their master sculptor, Carol Hulls, finishes the sculpting and makes sure that it duplicates your body. This is Brenda. And remember, those of you who are regulars here, you remember how much we talked about how Brenda's shoulders were uneven, and I showed you the yoke of her everybody's shirt, and it was so odd looking, but yet it hung right.
Bring it forward a little bit.
You can
There
see
you go.
here that distance, and you can also she can her shoulder on this side is slightly more pronounced on this side. So when you have a different level, a different length, and then you've got all the, no wonder her shirts never felt all that comfortable or didn't hang exactly the way she wanted them to. So let's just look at her proportions. Because I think this dress form is the size she wears in ready to wear. So this one is, what did we say? About 9.5, 9.25, 9.25. On this side, Brenda is 9.25. On this side, believe it or not, it's longer, nine, almost 10. So there's a difference there. Let's go
Three
for,
quarters of an inch, right?
yeah. And if we go from her bust point to her waist, it's only 6.5. And I know these were long. Well, this one's 6.75, but that one was a lot longer. But the list goes on with all the different proportions. And of course, the hip, Brenda has a very low hip and a high waist. So that proportion is 10 inches difference or 10 inches down, where on your dress form it might have been 8 or 9. And again, you can't fix the proportion change on the dress form by padding. So we're really excited about this. It is it's completely all foam. So it's completely pinnable.
Oh, Brenda.
And it is so dense that she's got samples, you can pin and repin and pin and repin, and it doesn't degrade the foam at all. So this has been very exciting for Brenda, although the first time you see yourself like this, it's a bit of a shock. But look at Brenda's hollow back. Can you see how that is? That was going to help her so much in getting the back of knits and wovens to fit her better, because she's always had that hollow back. And if you're a person that always has this like extra fabric right in here, and it might even catch on your pants or whatever, it's likely you have a curve to your spine or you have a hollow back like Brenda.
And that's something to point out too, because we talk about how they say to pad the dress form, and that's usually what you're having to do, right? But if you did need to take some away, that's not even an option at all to take anything away from a
No,
dress
yeah,
form like
yeah, yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah.
You can't, like you could do the bra thing or make your shoulders a little higher, do your rounded back, but you're not taking anything away from a dress form like that. You're not gonna carve it out.
No. And there is options for reducing these. Say that you did get lucky and lose 20 pounds or a certain amount, and you could talk to Carol about that because she's the sculptor. So this form, this cover can come off and it can be smoothed out a little bit
Right on time, because Claudia just asked that. How, as we
more.
lose or gain weight, how does that affect our proportions?
Yeah, yeah. And let's see what else. Well, let me tell you how light this is. This is so light that I can just hold it with one hand. It is like just foam, but it's a dense foam, so it's substantial. It's not going to deteriorate or fall apart. And you can hang it. She will set it up so you can hang it, or you can have it on a pole. Some people prefer one or the other. You can also put it on a pole and purchase the caster base uh, to have it roll around the room. But we're just thrilled. We haven't been able to do any fitting on here yet because we got it just before we went to New York or shortly there. And but yeah, and at one point we looked at it and we said, I don't know. Maybe she didn't get that quite right. So we drew it out and then we drew out Brenda's shoulders. It is exact. So sometimes you look at it, you go, that can't possibly be me. And this shoulder is farther forward than this one. And I met quite a few people at conference when we were doing the fitting of the t-shirts who had twisted shoulders where one came forward and one didn't. And they never been able to get a well-fitting garment. And some of them had tried more than one dress form.
Yeah, and I just want to say because I know you said you haven't been able to do any fitting on this yet because it came right before you went to New York. But this is something that Janet and Brenda have been working on for a while now, and we have not mentioned because, as you know, Janet is very skeptical of anything, as we all should be. That's like I'll save. It's perfect. It's a miracle product. It's this. It's that. It's all you've ever wanted. And we've seen these people do the scanning before for the patterns and all this stuff. So when we hear the scanning, it's a little bit of a ooh,
We
like you're
didn't
gonna
jump
scare
on it.
me,
Yeah, I
But
met her before COVID. I met her before COVID and I just sort of sat back. You're right. Sorry.
So, know that this is something that she's been working with Carol for a while and wanted to see the end result and, double check those measurements on Brenda and say this looks not right. Oh, it is. And that sort of stuff before telling you about it. Um, so that just so you know, this isn't like a fly by night thing, like, oh, we found this, it's so cool. She's been doing research into it and wanted to get that final dress form and see what it was like before we
But
said
you,
anything.
and I think it's just key with these two side by side. This is a size dress form Brenda would buy. Do you think she could fit herself on that form? Well, of course you don't, because it's just not even possible. It's just not going to work. And Brenda, Jessica's right. I've been approached by quite a few companies, some with digital patterns and other things, and they wanted us to work with them, endorse them. Uh, and I tried the products out, and I no, thank you. If it's not what I think is the best uh, option for you, because I know what's best for me and I can work around it. But for people who sew as a hobby, you need some good direction and somebody who says, yeah, I looked at this and it will work or it won't work.
I know everybody can see the difference, but I just want to hold this up so you could see, like, if that's the size dress form that Brenda would purchase off the rack, the difference,
Yeah,
even
this is
from
the
the
size garment
side,
she wears.
you know. I mean, that's not the same at all.
No,
Got my hand in the
not
way.
at all.
So it does feel weird, though, touching Brenda.
I had to measure it, and I was on the phone with Brenda, and I had it across my lap, and I go, Brenda, I have you in my lap. It was so funny. But yeah. And what we will be working on too is creating a stretch cover that will give us those princess lines uh, for uh, for fitting dresses and things. So you can always add that. But we really like Carol. Carol is a lovely person and very easy to work with. And to say that she's not hard sell is to be an understatement. So she's not the least bit pushy about her product, but she believes in it and she should. It works really, really well.
And I'm glad you said that because we did have a question, and I just
Excuse me
need
1 second. I'm just going to walk around here. Go ahead.
to find it because I want to get it right. So Linda's asking, and like Janet said, Carol believes in her product, but it sounds like she's not a born salesman, which is a good
She's
thing
just not pushy. Yeah.
because she believes in her product. She wants you to have it if you want it. But Linda asks, how come this company doesn't advertise? Never heard of this one. And I don't have all the answers to that, but I know that that's part of it. I also know it's not a huge company,
It's a
correct?
very small, it's a one person company other than the outsourcing, a couple outsources. And um, she could only handle what she can handle.
Because it is you're not going
It
to
is
crank these
custom.
you're
Yeah.
not cranking these out in a factory in China. She sculpts this. She gets it to match that scan, to match those shoulders and back and all that sort of stuff. So, um
And it would
I
be,
don't want to speak for her, but
yeah.
I just
Yeah.
know that like she can only take on so much would be
It
my
would be hard to train another sculptor as well and all of that. So right now she's working individually, one on one. And she does advertise a little, but I don't know that what her advertising budget is. But you can go on to her website, Ditto Forms.
Yeah, and I am going to put that in the comments
And
for her.
is Aline on here?
Yes, she already commented that she loves hers.
See, Aline got one, and I don't know how long ago she got it, but she mentioned it to me, and I kind of put it in the back of my mind. And then something came about, and Carol and I connected on another subject. And we said, well, we want to know more. And she said, well, let me come out there and I'll explain it. And she did. So we had Brenda scanned. I'm going to be next. I'm going to have mine done as well. And I I just can't find anything wrong with it other than I would like to have the princess seam cover on it, which I can easily do myself.
So
So,
some questions.
mhm.
If you draft, this is from Phyllis. If you draft your own sloper to accommodate body differences, how does that relate to the dress form?
Okay. So when you draft your own sloper, we, okay, who is this, Phyllis?
Phyllis.
So if Phyllis is a drafter, and she's drafting for herself, she may not need a dress form. We don't draft a sloper, or we don't teach drafting a sloper. We teach fitting a sloper. So, fitting a sloper is stitching up some of the pieces with the seams on the outside and then undoing one seam at a time and repinning it so it sculpts to your body, your shoulder slope, your shape. So we're not drafting, we're actually pin fitting and creating a new pattern. That's where this works. And every time you try something new or a new garment, you can slip it on here and make sure that it is as you thought it was. So here's a good one. I got an email from a woman this morning, and this is just an excerpt from her email. Broad back, forward shoulder bone, high round back, short neck, and full bust adjustments are almost a must. Sounds like a fitting nightmare, doesn't it? And she does all of those pattern alteration systems, and then she still is needs help because she's still having drag lines in the back. This is what, and could you imagine? There's what, how many of them? Five, and each one's going to impact the other one. So by the time you do one, if you're not a pattern drafter, you really don't, well, a pattern drafter wouldn't do it, but you don't understand how it's impacting another
Right.
part. So
Like, which
If
one should I start with?
yeah,
It's still gonna affect the other one.
and as I've explained, and I will probably do right to my grave, is that when we learned to sew, we were not of the mind or the understanding, or it was lost, that the pattern was a starting point and that we had to be aware of our own body or whoever we were sewing for to make changes to the pattern. And so we start sewing them up saying, oh, they don't make them to fit. So then when people realize, well, there's no way this fits, some of us just give up and we accept it, an okay fit. And others want that better fit. So they develop these pattern alteration systems. And I love these people, and some of them are the nicest people you'll ever meet. I'm not trying to disparage anybody, but the problem is you're trying to fix something afterwards. Fix it before. Because sometimes, particularly with pant fitting, if your center of your body, and I'm talking right that middle center where all the crotch seams come together, if that pattern isn't developed to be in the center of your body, which chances are it wasn't, you can, and I see people do this all the time. They say, sew up the muslin, put it on, now pin, 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 and they pin tucks, they pin pleats, and da 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 da. It's never going to hang right on you. And what happens is they distort the grain, trying to get it to fit because the crotch isn't long enough, or it's too, or the crotch is too long. That's me. The crotch is always too long for me. So all those things, I mean, this does, she was right. It sounds like a fitting nightmare. If she had a sloper, we make a sloper by fitting our body or fitting our exact dress form. Then we get a commercial pattern. We There's just simple alignment to make sure you still keep it the same straight of grain, and you line up a couple places and then you adjust the commercial pattern to be the shape of your sloper, and then you can sew it up and know it's going to fit. And that's how easy it is. But if you are making 3, 4, 5 pattern alteration adjustments to every pattern you sew, it's got to be tedious.
Yeah, I'm out.
And a lot of people are out. She'd be out. She
I'm
wouldn't
out.
do it.
No. Connie has the $1,000,000 question, which is not $1,000,000 answer.
It's not $1,000,000, Tom.
What's the cost?
Um, well, I will tell you that the cost is right around $2,000 delivered. So that's the scan and the completed to your satisfaction. So if there's something that isn't quite right, she will correct it, but we didn't find anything wrong with ours. But it's right around $2,000. But I would invite you to talk to Carol about that because I'm not I'm not a
I'm not a
member of, yeah,
salesperson.
I'm
We're
not,
not.
yeah, I shouldn't even be saying it. Although I'm telling you,
If you have the means,
yeah,
yeah.
if it's in your budget and you're having to do any kind of alterations over and over and over again, get a good form and let's get you a sloper and let's have sewing be fun, more fun and faster. Or we'll get you a sloper on your body. But like many of you said, is I don't have somebody to help me and I can't see my back. And the back is every bit as important to as the front, not only so that it looks good, but how the back fits impacts how the front fits. And that's what this lady was telling me. Even though she's got it fitting, she got drag marks back here that go up from here. That's because the back's not fitting. She needs more fabric here. Okay, but she did all those alterations. Now I can't tell you if the back fit before she did all those, because that could be the reason. I don't know. But when you have to do that many, it's just mind blowing to try and figure out where it went wrong.
All right. And then Bernice wants to know, which is a good question, Bernice. Did you put the lines on the cover?
No, this is exactly how it
It
came to
includes
us,
that.
with one exception. And this pole was about this much higher, but we had to cut it off to take it to New York. It wouldn't fit in the bag.
Oh, they had a bag to put it in to, so they weren't carrying Brenda naked through the airport.
We'd had to buy her a seat.
Yeah. So, Yes, they do. She does all the lines for you, so you don't ever have to second guess that. Did I get it in the right spot? Is that really the where my hip goes?
She's trying to help you identify the apex and the hip.
The
And
center.
yep, and you can also do your own lines because this is draping tape. So if you've watched Project Runway, sometimes, especially if you watch Rami, who's on there now, he might use draping tape. So they put it right on the form and then they drape their fabric on top of it. So it's really easy to use, and she's got tiny little pins that she's pinned it in there. So you could add all kinds of design lines. And that's what they do when they want, like you say, oh, I want a V neck. How low should my V neck be? Well, Brenda knows where her cleavage starts. So she could do the tape and make the V neck just exactly where she thinks would be best on her body.
Okay. Now this is a question. Well, it's just they're not the same. How does this compare to French European dress forms?
Okay. Well, French European dress forms are this. They're made by the same company pretty much.
Yes. And
S-
of
They
course,
do they're nice and they're perfect
yes.
for pattern designers and garment designers.
Yes. And if you've been with us a long time, you know that
Yes,
we
yes,
did a thing on them too. We do recommend them, but it's not the same as getting
you won't get your same
your
proportions.
body,
Exactly.
your body. That's the difference.
It's a huge difference. And again, as you can see, it's a huge difference. And again, if you want to design patterns or you want to design garments that are going to be reproduced in several different sizes and graded into different patterns, this is great. But if you want to design for a specific person, there's nothing that compares to this. Nothing. Again, like Jessica said, if it's not in your budget, it's not in your budget. And then you'll find what you can work with until it is in your budget. And sometimes people save to have something like that.
Yeah.
So, but I just want you to know it's out there and why it's
And
such an excellent
the
product.
scanning process take when she scanned Brenda?
I don't think it took an hour, from start to finish, which was explaining everything. And actually, she has you stand in your normal posture so that you have a normal standing posture. Why do you want that? Because a lot of people will go like this, and I'm gonna stand up real straight so it looks great, but that isn't how you wear your clothes. So if you want your clothes to hang straight and nice while you're wearing them and walking around casually, then you want to stand in your normal posture, and she knows that.
Well, let's put it this way. Having this done and maybe getting your dress form is not a huge moral boost. But having your
Morale.
morale, yeah, your clothes fit because this is your body, the way you stand and everything is.
Because the difference is when your clothes fit and hang right, your body looks like it's more in proportion. Your body looks better in the clothes, is what I'm trying to say. But look at the rounding to the back here, and look at this. So that's what you're going to get in any commercial dress form. Some are nicer than others. Some are more pinnable. Some have better design lines on them. Proportions are going to be about the same on the basic design dress form. And again, those dial ones, you can't do anything to change the proportions on those either.
And when you dial them out far enough, there's just a gap in the middle.
I know.
You're just pieces parts.
Yeah, it is there. Yeah. Anyway, so any more questions? And Aline, who's on here, she's been using her, so she's probably a better testimony.
Yeah.
So, Aline, you
She
tell
did
us,
early on say, I love that she loves hers.
okay,
So,
if there's any more that you would like to elaborate on that, Aline, send it to me and I'll put it in the next newsletter. So, tell us, why was it successful? How did it change your sewing and all of that? That would be great, and we'll put it on the next one. And but it's Carol's at Ditto Form.
And I did put the link in the
Okay,
comments,
good,
so
good.
you can go right there. It says Ditto Form 3D scan body forms. Yep.
And I think this all started with that article I wrote a couple months ago. And I did mention that at one time there was a company that was selling patterns and they were scanning people, scanning, and saying they could make a pattern that fit your body from the scan. And their patterns didn't work and they didn't fit, but the scan worked. That was the thing. There wasn't anything wrong with the scan, it was the pattern making software and the lack of quality control in the in delivering the patterns to the consumer. So that's where that one all went wrong. And so it's not the scanner that I don't believe in, and I particularly believe in it more now because I can really see it and measure it. But that company, and some of you got burned on that company, I know, really did a disservice to a lot of sewers because it took a lot of money and made a lot of promises that they couldn't deliver, which was patterns that will fit you perfectly.
If you're anywhere near Washington, D.C., it looks like she'll be there August 13th and will be scanning. And I know that Ingrid commented, it looks like scans are only available in limited locations, but don't let that turn you off from that. Contact her. Don't let just what's on the website be like, oh, well, she's not near me. Contact her.
Yeah, because she came to New York
Yep.
and she had a customer that had asked, and she lived in Brooklyn. So she just went over to Brooklyn while she was in New York, and then she was moving on to another. So she might be coming in your area. It's just not
Not on,
announced.
yeah.
It's not a regular, but especially if she gets more than one person in an area, she'll come to you. Or if you're anywhere near the Detroit area or you're visiting, you can come to her. She came right out here to us, and it was really convenient.
All right.
All right.
So it sounds like you're gonna put a little bit. Okay, Bev said she came to Orlando area 2 years ago and stopped by Windermere.
Windermere.
Oh, okay. So there you go. But it sounds like you're gonna be putting a newsletter together about it.
Yeah,
But
I'll
if
add some more
Yeah,
information.
but if you have any other questions, you can reach out to us, or reach out right from her website to her if you have specific questions about it. Like we said, we're not salespeople for this. It's just something that we were very interested in and gave it a shot and are very happy with the results and wanted to share with you.
Yeah, and it takes a few weeks, but not too long. Depends on her schedule at the time, and she can tell you directly when you set up a scan how long it'll take. Because once you've got the scan, then you can't wait to get it. You
Right.
get really excited. Now we're going to be doing a lot more with fitting the rest of this year. So Jessica and I will be filming the second episode of the Knit Sloper,
Yes.
the new Knit Sloper series very soon. So that'll be out quite quickly. And so that will help you more with your knit fitting. I know that we had it on there, but I think we left a few questions unanswered. So now we're trying to go back and make sure we answer every
Yeah,
question
the first time we did the series,
during COVID.
it
We were just,
was just kind of new. So we want to go back, and we've already had lots of comments about
the new
the
one.
new one, and it has more detail and better understanding. But ever, if you have a question, islandersewing@comcast.net is the easiest way to get a hold of us. And we'll get that answered for you.
Yeah. And along the lines of fitting, we do have 3 bundles that are on sale, and we put them on sale for the people who took my pant um drafting lecture, my pant fitting drafting
So
lecture.
you're just rubbing it in their faces
What?
that it's on
So
sale for.
I'm going to offer it to, of course, I can't offer something to anybody else if I don't offer it to Tuesdays at 2. I mean, really,
Okay.
you guys are the loyal fans. We've got to make sure you get any of the specials. So, anyways, these, and you may have already purchased these, but there's three of them. They're on the fitting page, and they're pant fitting bundles. Wait, let me double check. They are on the fitting page, right, Brenda? Okay, an hour ago. They weren't on there yet. We were having a little difficulty. But anyways, you have till the 13th if you want to take
This
advantage of those.
pant drafting and fitting
N-
support.
No,
No.
not the support. Go to the next page. You'll see slides. There they are.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure I had the right link, so I'm
Yeah,
glad.
yeah.
Okay, so it says, so it'll be labeled ASG Conference Package 1, ASG Conference Package 2, or Webinar Package 1, Webinar Package 2 is what else it says.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, so just so you know, that's what you're looking for.
Which page of the of the
It's too
fitting?
bad. I'm gonna put the link
Oh,
right
okay.
in the comment. It's fitting on the second page. It looks a little deceiving. There is a second page, but I'm gonna put the direct link to the second page right now.
Yeah. So that's those are really good bargains. And if you want getting ready to do some pant drafting, that's a good savings.
I
What?
thought I had somebody hanging out there, but
Oh, okay. And in the lecture, as I've said here before too, there is no substitute for an actual physical draft of your own pants because it's almost like body mapping. And again, everybody's proportions are different. And how many of us ever put on a pair of pants that fit perfect? And this will change your life to get a pair of pants that fit you right. But understanding the crotch seam and all the different proportions, it what makes the difference. And when you follow the directions in the pant drafting book, you don't have to understand anything except for how to follow directions because it's like a GPS map. If you follow those directions and you do your math correctly, so double check your math before, all of a sudden you've got a pant pattern and you didn't even know how to get there. You just followed the directions. So it's a pretty cool thing. And really, with the woman's body, it's about the only way you're going to get a really good fit. Okay. Anything else? Any questions today come up that don't,
I answered the questions that came up. Yep.
All right.
So
Why aren't you
it should
special?
be good. But again, Islander Sewing at Comcast.net. Website is islandersewing.com. For any products that you're looking for or those
And don't forget our
kits.
Mythbusters at the top. In the black bar, you'll find the 15 sewing Mythbusters that I talked about at conference.
Okay.
And they're always enlightening. If you haven't read them, I think you should. I
They're
hope you will.
always enlightening
They
to
are
Janet,
enlightening.
who wrote them. No, we really do get a lot of comments about, you know, explaining why something is not just why to or why not to do something. It's the explanation that people need to understand. Um,
Absolutely. We don't just say yes or no. We say no because or yes because.
yes. All right. So until next time.
September. Can you believe it?
Janet didn't know it was August,
I didn't. She called me last night. I'm exhausted.
which I knew would be the case for anybody.
Yes, but particularly me. Well, I did
Yeah.
teach from 8 to 5 every day. And anyway,
I was
she
tired
says, "What are
just
we
thinking
doing
about
at
it.
Tuesdays at 2?" And I went, now I knew I'd planned ahead of time, but I had forgotten that it was going to be right after the
Yeah,
trip,
the day after.
I'm like, oh, because I was saying to Brenda, I want to take Tuesday off. I want to
Less
sleep in.
less than 24 hours since her plane landed.
I'm taking tomorrow off. Of
She'll still answer your email though, I'm sure.
course I will.
All right, we'll see you next time.
Thanks, everyone, from Islander Sewing Systems, Janet Prey and Jessica Johnson. We hope you have a fabulous August. And so. Bye now.